together, but before we do, we want to serge all the sides. So that is the same for the yoke and for the skirt. If you have lightweight fabric, you can overlock later. Now we want to first of all put the interfacing onto the yoke, and in order to get it into the right position, I'm just going to iron over where we just snipped it, and then I put my interfacing on that pleat and iron that on. You can leave your iron on there for 8 seconds. That will secure your interfacing. And in the meantime, I'm going to put the other one on and then just move my iron over. And when they're both securely on, I can fold it over again, give it another press, and then walk on over to the serger and serge that edge as well. Right, now we're ready for the skirt, and what we want to do is put the side seams on top of each other. In your instructions, it will say put them together, sew them, then serge. My fabric is way too heavy for that, so I'm doing a seam and then I iron the seam apart. And do the same on the other side. For firm fabric like this, a couple of pins really are quite enough. And then I sew together with a seam allowance of 1 centimeter. So I line up my edge of the fabric with a marking on the needle plate. And one thing to get into the habit of is not to look at the needle while you're doing it. And then I've got a little trick for you at the end. So we're going to lock in our stitches, and instead of taking it out and cutting off the threads, what you want to do is grab the other edge that you want to close, put it straight under so that you're not wasting any thread. Just go over, lock in your stitches again, and voila. Also, you don't have these long threads hanging, and if you're making, say, 10 of these skirts, say you're making them for bazaar or something, you know, fete, then yeah, it makes a load of difference. And then you want to iron your seam flat, and then we'll iron it apart, and that gives you a really beautiful flat seam. Next, you want to serge the edge of the hem, and then you can turn it up 3 centimeter or turn it up 2 centimeters and turn it in 1 centimeter. I'm going for the 3 centimeters because I'm not gathering my skirt, I'm putting the pleats in, and really when you have pleats you don't want the hem to be too thick. So I'm just using my tape measure to measure up the 3 centimeters, and then I iron it all the way around to that marking, and then I can just pop on over to my sewing machine and sew it in. So if I ironed it up 3 centimeters, I want to be just slightly below that, and that should be kind of in the center of your serging that you've got on there. You can also pull it a bit from the back, not too much obviously, but sometimes the fabric will push and then give little pleats, and so that makes it a little bit easier. The stitch length should be 3.5 so that it doesn't look so homemade when you turn it over, and you line up the edge of your hem with the marking on the needle plate that you found works for you. That'll be just between 2.5 and 3 centimeters. Don't forget to lock in your stitches, and then you can go and give that a jolly good press. But you have a really nice hem here now, and it looks very professional. Next we're going to do the pleats, and they are actually quite easy. There are many ways to do the pleats. So I'm finding my side, that's here, and then I'm starting at the center front. And with these kind of box pleats, you can pleat them to the front or the back. So if you pleat to the front, like I'm doing here, you end up with a divide straight in the center. If you do it the other way around, you have a flat box on the front. That's really up to you, both works. So it's always, you pinch where you have your snip, so it's pinch and fold over. And that's why I didn't really want to mark the center of my pleats, because it's very, very confusing when you have that many in there. You always want to pin it on both sides so that it's securely in there. And now I'm finding my other mark where I've snipped. Where is it? Right there. And I take it and I pinch it, and now I fold back the fabric to that point where the other box pleat ended. So now I have that folded in. And it's automatic, so you don't really need to mark it. And now I'm going to pinch the next pleat and line that up right next to the pleat I've just finished. So as long as you do that, it'll come out right. One other thing that you can do, and I did that on my Vivian dress, that is you take the two pleats you've marked, put those on top of each other, sew them together vertically down, so you've got maybe a centimeter and a half sewn together. That is also possible, but you shouldn't go down any further than that because you want them to spring open. So see how you want to work this. There are many ways that you can do this. It's always pinch and fold. Make sure you put the pins in so you secure it. And I am going to sew around it with a holding stitch in a minute so that I can pull out the pins. Now, having done this once in this fabric and with a really long stitch length where my pleats pulled apart a little bit afterwards, after all this lovely pleating I'd done, I was a little bit disappointed with myself. So you can decide whether you want to put that stitch line in or whether you say, well, what if it pulls apart? I would rather it doesn't, and I'm not worried about being pricked here and there by my pins. Then, you know, you can leave the pins in because that will ensure that they will not spread open. The other option is to use a smaller stitch length, sort of 2 to 2.5. I actually used 5 or 6, I think, which was pretty daft. So, but I did think it would hold it, but it doesn't. So don't make that mistake of making your holding stitch too big. If you do a holding stitch, 2.5 stitch length is exactly right. Make sure that nothing turns over, and that's your skirt done. You can remove all your pins, and we're now ready to work our yoke and the waistband. So I see you over there.